All right, get ready to blast off, because today we're diving deep into Samantha Harvey's Orbital, a novel that promises to give us a look into what it's actually like to live in space. And, well, you sent this one my way, and I gotta say, I'm already hooked.
Yeah, it's really something. It blends real science with these very human stories. Harvey doesn't shy away from the nitty-gritty of life on a space station, but she also goes deep into how being in orbit messes with your head, how it changes the astronauts' view of themselves and Earth.
And that's what I'm really curious about. We've all seen those amazing pictures of astronauts floating around, but what is it actually like to live in basically a tin can flying through
Oh.
space?
Well, let's just say it's not all gazing at the stars and doing zero gravity flips. Harvey paints this really vivid picture of the space station layout: cramped modules, sleeping bags strapped to the wall, and constantly having to fix broken equipment.
Oh, wow. That's a far cry from the space movies that I grew up with. So what are some of the more unexpected challenges the astronauts have to face?
Well, imagine trying to clean a toilet that's always breaking in zero gravity, or
Right.
or having to change a smoke detector while you're floating around. It's the everyday things that become like crazy challenges up there.
It really makes you think about how much we take for granted down here. I mean, a broken toilet here is annoying, but up there, that could be a disaster.
Exactly. And then there's the constant, the threat of fire, ammonia leaks, radiation exposure, even micrometeoroid strikes. It's pretty high stakes up there.
Yeah, no kidding. So how did the astronauts even function with all of that, hanging over their heads?
Well, that's where the psychology comes in. Harvey's really good at showing how emotionally and mentally draining it is to live in this confined, dangerous environment. The astronauts in Orbital experience a whole range of emotions, from the initial awe and excitement of being in space to feeling isolated and constantly knowing how fragile they are.
Okay, so we've got the physical challenges, the mental pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Now let's meet the crew. Tell me about these astronauts, the ones brave enough to sign up for all of this.
Oh, there's this really interesting mix of personalities. There's Nell, the mission commander, who is she's dealing with her mother's death, which just happened, while also trying to stay calm in a crisis. Sean is, well, he's a bit of a mystery. He's got this dark past, but he finds comfort in art.
It's interesting that you mentioned Sean and Art. I was struck by the connection Harvey makes between those hanged figures he drew as a teenager and the Las Meninas postcard his wife sends him.
Oh, that's a great observation. It's almost like by sending him that image, that painting of a painting, his wife she's reminding him about the power of perspective, of seeing the world and himself in a new light. And that's a big theme in the novel, how being in space changes the way you see things.
It does make you wonder, does being away from Earth actually make you understand what it means to be human better?
That's a question Harvey seems to be struggling with throughout the book. Then there's Chi. She's meticulous list maker, finds comfort in routine even as she's grieving for her mother back on Earth.
So it sounds like everyone is bringing their own baggage, their own ways of coping to deal with these extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. And some like Anton have dreamt of going to space since they were kids, building those makeshift spaceships, pretending to be astronauts. But even for him, the reality of being in space is way more complex and challenging than he ever imagined.
That's got to be tough when a lifelong dream smashes into reality. What about the others?
Well, there's Pietro who finds himself missing those simple things about Earth, like pointless ornaments, soft rugs. He even starts questioning this whole idea of progress, especially since his teenage daughter back home is having similar doubts.
So even while they're flying through space at thousands of miles an hour, they're still dealing with very earthly concerns.
Exactly. They don't stop being human just because they leave Earth. And then there's Roman who idolizes Sergei Krikalev, the cosmonaut who got stuck in space when the Soviet Union fell apart. Roman finds this deep connection to Earth, almost spiritual, by taking pictures of it from orbit.
So each astronaut finds their own way of dealing with the isolation, the danger, and just the strangeness of being in space.
That's what makes Orbital so interesting. It's not just about the science and technology of space travel, but about these human stories, these people trying to understand what they're going through and find meaning in this incredible environment.
I can already tell this deep dive is going to take us in some some really fascinating directions.
Oh, it will, and we've only just started. The real story starts when we look at how their experiences, anxieties, and personal breakthroughs all happen while these huge events are unfolding, both on Earth and in space.
I'm really hooked. Let's talk about those events. What else does Harvey throw at these astronauts?
Well, for one thing, there's a typhoon brewing down on Earth, and as the space station orbits the planet, they watch this storm grow from a small disturbance into a Category 5 monster.
Wow, they're literally watching a natural disaster happen from above. That's got to be surreal.
It is. They're like detached observers in a way,
Right.
tracking the storm with their instruments. But they know how much damage it could do to the people below.
And to really drive that point home, Harvey shows us what's happening on the ground, right? I think she describes a fisherman and his family taking shelter.
Yes. A family huddled together in a chapel as the typhoon rages outside. It's this powerful contrast. The astronauts, in their sterile, high-tech environment, and this family facing the raw force of nature head on.
It's a reminder that even as we push the boundaries of space exploration, we're still connected to Earth and everyone on it.
Absolutely. And that connection is even more clear with another event that happens in Orbital, the launch of a new mission to the moon.
Oh yeah, I remember reading about that. It's a big deal, right? They named the spacecraft Artemis and Orion.
They did. Names right out of mythology, setting off on this journey that takes us back to the Apollo program. And for the astronauts on the space station, it brings up all these emotions.
Like what kind of emotion?
Well, excitement, of course,
Yeah,
the thrill of seeing humanity going further into space, but there's also a bit of envy, this feeling of being left behind as the next generation takes the spotlight.
It's like they realize that even though they're astronauts, they're still just a small part of something much bigger that's happening.
Exactly. And their own mission, orbiting the Earth, starts to feel, well, kind of ordinary compared to a moon landing. Even with all the danger and excitement of their daily lives, the routine sets in. And that's when Harvey introduces something that really expands the scope of the story. The Voyager probes.
Oh wow, those are legendary. Those are the ones that are like billions of miles away, carrying that message from Earth out into space, right?
Right. The golden records filled with sounds and pictures representing Earth and everyone on it.
It's mind-blowing to think about those probes just drifting through space, carrying that little piece of us with them.
It really is. And it makes you wonder, what are the chances of that message ever being found? What would another civilization even make of it?
Yeah, that's getting pretty deep. Feels like we've only scratched the surface here.
We have, and there's so much more to uncover. We've just started to look at the complex ideas and deep insights that Harvey puts into this incredible novel.
Oh, you've definitely got me curious. I'm ready to dive even deeper into Orbital.
We will. Buckle up. Things are about to get really interesting. It's amazing how Orbital shows the contrast between like the grandeur of space exploration and what it's actually like to live in orbit. On one hand, you have these incredible feats of engineering, these bold missions pushing the boundaries of human knowledge.
And on the other, you've got astronauts worrying about leaky toilets and struggling to exercise in zero gravity.
Exactly. It's like a reminder that even in this extraordinary environment, life still involves a lot of routine, a lot of, problem solving, and even moments of just absurdity.
Like those separate nationalized toilets we talked about earlier. Can you imagine being strapped into a rocket, hurtling towards space, and still having to deal with political squabbles?
It's this dark humor that really shows the disconnect between like the high ideals of space exploration and the reality of how humans actually behave. Even in this shared awe-inspiring experience, our earthly divisions, they kind of stick with us. But what's really incredible is how the astronauts find moments of joy and connection even with all these challenges.
Yeah. It's like their isolation makes those moments, those connections even more important.
Absolutely. They adapt. They find comfort in shared meals, movie nights, simple conversations. And in a way, being detached from Earth lets them see those connections even more clearly.
It's like they're getting this fresh perspective on what really matters. And you said earlier how this experience changes their view of Earth itself, right?
Yeah. One of the most powerful things about Orbital is how it shows the astronauts' changing relationship with our planet. At first, they're struck by how beautiful it is, this amazing sight of Earth from space.
I bet that first glimpse is just mind-blowing.
Oh, totally. But as they spend more time up there, their perspective changes. They start to see Earth's fragility, how everything is connected, how human activity is affecting the whole
It's
planet.
like they're seeing the planet for the first time, noticing things you can't see from the ground.
Exactly. They describe the continents as overgrown gardens, flowing into each other, challenging our ideas of borders and separation. They see how politics is shaping the landscape, from deforestation to pollution, showing the impact of what humans do.
And with that awareness comes a sense of responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Like a desire to protect the planet, even though they're physically away from it.
Yeah, exactly. And that makes us think, down here on Earth, how do we take that perspective, that awareness from space, and turn it into action? How do we bridge the gap between seeing the big picture and actually making a difference?
It's a big question, and Orbital doesn't really give us any easy answers, but it definitely makes you think. It makes you think about the the choices we make, both individually and as a society, and the impact those choices have on our planet.
It also makes us think about the Voyager probes in a new way. Those tiny spacecraft carrying our message out into space, they represent this bold act of hope, of reaching out, even though the chances of that message being found are tiny.
It's a reminder that even small actions can have big effects, that our choices matter, and that even when the odds are stacked against us, humans, we still want to connect, to explore, to leave our mark on the universe.
And speaking of leaving a mark, let's talk about the typhoon that's such a big part of Orbital. The way Harvey includes this natural disaster in the story is brilliant.
It's more than just a storm, right? It's almost like another character, a force of nature that reflects the turmoil and change happening within the astronauts themselves.
Yeah. Exactly. It starts as a 70-mile-an-hour skirmish, just a small thing on their radar. But each time they orbit, it gets stronger, turning into this Category 5 monster, this swirling vortex of destruction.
And all the while, the astronauts are watching from above, unable to do anything. They're forced to see how limited human control really is, the power of nature, and how fragile life is on Earth.
And to really emphasize that, Harvey shows us that family in the Philippines taking shelter in a chapel as the typhoon hits. It's a reminder that while the astronauts are up there in orbit, real people's lives are being affected. Real people are facing the consequences.
It's a powerful moment, but it also shows the resilience of humans. The fisherman and his family huddled together, surviving the storm. They show that same strength that drive the astronauts to explore the unknown, to push the boundaries of what humans can do.
And that brings us back to the idea of mundaneness that you mentioned earlier. The astronauts, they experience these moments of awe and wonder, but they also deal with the routine, the isolation, the missing home.
So what does mundaneness even mean when we're talking about space travel? Can you feel ordinary while doing something so extraordinary?
That's a great question. I think it's about how humans can adapt to find normalcy, even in extreme situations. It's about realizing that even astronauts orbiting the Earth still have to deal with the everyday stuff of life, the same emotions and worries that we all have down here.
It's like a reminder that even as we reach for the stars, we're still human. And speaking of reaching for the stars, the new moon mission that happens in Orbital really throws the astronauts off, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. The launch of Artemis and Orion, it's this huge event, a symbol of progress and ambition. But for the astronauts on the space station, it also makes them feel envious, overshadowed, like they're questioning their own purpose.
It's like their mission, which once seemed so groundbreaking, suddenly feels, well, kind of routine, even boring compared to a moon landing.
Exactly. And that says a lot about exploration itself. This drive to go further, to go beyond what's been done before. It's part of who we are. But it also makes us think about, the cost of progress, the sacrifices involved, and how it affects those who are left behind.
And it highlights how exploration keeps going. Each new achievement becomes the starting point for the next one, and the search for the unknown continues. But even as we celebrate those milestones, it's important to remember the human stories, the individual journeys that make those achievements possible.
That's one of the things I really appreciate about Orbital. It doesn't just focus on the amazing technology of space travel. It also looks into the minds and hearts of the astronauts, their hopes, fears, and vulnerabilities. It reminds us that even in these incredible situations, it's the human element that really matters.
And that brings us back to the idea of shifting perspectives. Being in space changes how the astronauts see Earth, their relationships, and even themselves. They start to appreciate how everything is connected, how fragile our planet is, and how important it is to cherish the moments we have.
And that shift in perspective is something we can all relate to, even if we haven't been to space, whether it's through travel, new experiences, or just taking time to think about our lives. We can all, challenge our assumptions, see things in new ways, and see the world with fresh eyes.
It's about getting out of our comfort zone, seeing things from different angles, and recognizing how vast and amazing the universe is, both inside us and out there in space. And Orbital shows us how those journeys, both internal and external, can help us understand ourselves and our place in everything.
And on that note, I think this is a good place to pause and reflect. We've covered a lot, exploring the physical and mental challenges of space travel, how major events change the astronauts' views, and the big themes of human connection, resilience, and searching for meaning in this vast and often indifferent universe.
We've gone through typhoons and moon launches, looked at the ordinary and the extraordinary, and thought about big questions about progress, purpose, and the legacy we leave behind.
But there's still one more part of this to explore, one final layer to uncover before we can fully appreciate how brilliant Orbital is and the profound insights it gives us.
Okay, you've definitely got me intrigued. What else is there to discover in this cosmic story?
Well, to really understand the impact of this novel, we need to go back to the human element. We need to explore how these astronauts' individual stories, their struggles and triumphs, ultimately shape their understanding of what it means to be human, both on Earth and beyond.
Okay, lead the way. I'm ready to dive back in. Okay, so we're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into Samantha Harvey's Orbital. And you were saying we need to circle back to the human side of the story.
Yeah, exactly. Because, at its core, Orbital is all about this search for meaning, for connection, for something bigger than just the vastness of space and our limited existence here on Earth.
And each astronaut kind of grapples with those questions in their own way, right?
Oh, absolutely. Take Pietro, for example.
Yeah.
Here he is surrounded by all the wonders of space, and what does he miss? Pointless ornaments and the feeling of a soft rug under his feet.
It's almost funny, right? Surrounded by the extraordinary, he craves the ordinary.
But it shows this basic human need,
Yeah.
the need for comfort, for things that are familiar, for those reminders of home and connection. And it's through those longings that he starts to see the beauty in everyday things, how precious those seemingly mundane things really are.
Then there's Nell, having to deal with her mother's death while also trying to stay composed as the government commander. That's got to be incredibly tough.
It is, and her grief comes out in unexpected ways. She finds herself drawn to this ritual of lighting candles, something she did as a kid to, ward off demons. But up in space, it takes on this whole new meaning. It's like a way to remember her mother, a little flicker of light against the infinite darkness.
It's kind of beautiful how even in this sterile technological environment, these very human needs for ritual, for remembrance, for connecting to something bigger than ourselves, they still find a way to come through.
And then you've got Chi, who deals with the stress and isolation by making lists. It's her way of creating order in this world that often feels, chaotic and unpredictable.
And I remember reading that she finds out about her mother's death while she's up there too. How does she even begin to process that kind of loss so far from home?
That's one of the most moving parts of the book. She kind of retreats into her lists, finds comfort in that routine, even as she's grieving silently. It's this powerful reminder that even when we face, huge loss, we find ways to cope, to adapt, to keep going.
And it shows the strength of the human spirit, that ability to find resilience, even in the toughest situations. What about Sean? We haven't talked about him in a while. He always seemed like the most complex character to me, with that dark past haunting him.
He is, and his journey is fascinating. Remember those hanged figures he drew as a teenager? Well, in space, he finds himself drawn back to art, but this time it's through that Las Meninas postcard his wife sends him.
Right, that picture of the painting about painting, it's so layered, almost like a metaphor.
Exactly. And it triggers the shift in him. He starts to see the beauty in creation, how things are connected, even the possibility of something divine at work in the universe. It's so different from Chi's view, which is more scientific, seeing only chance and chaos.
So we had these two very different perspectives on what it means to exist, all playing out against this backdrop of space travel. It's almost like Harvey is saying that even with all this scientific evidence, there's still room for faith, for belief, for people to interpret things their own way.
And that's a powerful message, especially now when it feels like those two perspectives are always clashing. Orbital reminds us that there's space for both, that searching for knowledge and searching for meaning can exist together, even support each other.
It's about being okay with the mystery, the unknown, the questions that might not have, clear answers. And it's about recognizing that we all bring our own experiences, beliefs, and ways of seeing things to the table, even in science, which is supposed to be objective.
And it's interesting how all of these individual journeys, these internal struggles and changes, they all tie back to this bigger theme of how humanity relates to the universe.
How so?
Well, think about it. These astronauts are literally floating in nothingness, surrounded by this vast emptiness of space. They're faced with how massive the cosmos is, how fragile their own existence is. And yet, even with all of that, they find themselves coming back to these basic human needs for connection, for purpose, for meaning.
It's like they're trying to find their place in everything to make sense of their own existence.
Yeah.
When they look at this cosmic perspective.
Exactly. And in a way, isn't that what we're all doing down here on Earth? Trying to find our place, our purpose, our connection to something bigger than ourselves.
It's a human thing, right? This searching for meaning, and Orbital just takes it to a whole other level, literally.
It does, and it reminds us that even as we explore outer space, the most profound discoveries are often about ourselves, about what it means to be human. It's about understanding who we are, what we value, and what we're willing to fight for.
And speaking of fighting, the ending of Orbital
Mm.
really, really hits you hard emotionally. I don't want to spoil anything, but it left me with this feeling of hope, of resilience, of the strength of the human spirit.
It does, doesn't it? Without giving anything away, it comes back to that family in the Philippines going through the typhoon. They come out of the chapel, battered but alive. They're a testament to how tenacious life is, how we can endure even the worst storms.
And it's a great metaphor for life in general, isn't it?
Yeah.
We face challenges, we experience loss, we go through storms, both literally and figuratively. But somehow we find a way to keep going, to rebuild, to find meaning and beauty, even when things are broken.
And that's the real message of Orbital, I think. It's a reminder that even when things seem impossible, in the vastness of space, the human spirit, it endures. We're explorers, survivors, dreamers, and as long as we keep reaching for the stars, keep looking for connection, keep striving for meaning, there's always hope.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways you think our listeners should remember?
Well, for me, it's all about perspective. Orbital makes us look at ourselves, our planet, and our place in the universe in a new way. It shows us how fragile life is, how everything's connected, and how important it is to appreciate what we have while we have it.
It's about finding meaning in the everyday things, beauty in the broken things, and hope even when things are really dark.
And it's about recognizing that the journey of exploration, whether it's, into space or into our own hearts, is ultimately a journey of discovering ourselves.
Orbital is this powerful and moving testament to the human spirit, leaving us with a sense of awe, of possibility, and of the strength of connection.
And on that note, I think it's time to leave our listeners with one final thought. As you go about your day, remember this. You are a part of something much, much bigger than yourself. You're connected to everyone on this planet, to the stars, to the very essence of the universe.
And inside you, you have that same spirit of exploration, of resilience, of wonder that has driven humanity to reach for the stars.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep searching for your own place in this grand and ever-changing story. That's what Orbital is all about.
And that's what the deep dive is all about too. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Go on.